Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Puck Watching STL for a happy Saturday episode as we enter game one, round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs featuring the St. Louis Blues for the first time in 3 seasons. Nick, it's a happy day. How are we feeling?
We're feeling pretty good. Blues playoff hockey's back. There's not much else to say besides that. I don't really care what it took. We're here, and we have an opportunity to kick off the NHL playoffs tonight at 5 p.m. So what a privilege, Luke.
Yeah, well, it's a serious privilege, and I think a long time ago we would not have said this is possible, and I think we'll happily eat those words. I think because I know we weren't very confident about this team, but I will say it didn't come without its little nerves. I would say in the last game of the season as they played the Utah Hockey Club, which was the biggest game of the Blues season. We stressed it as best as we could in the episode before that, but because they had some tough losses there. You know, you lose 3 times on the road, and you kind of let Calgary crawl right back into it, and they really did finish with the same amount of points as us, but we won the tiebreaker with those regulation wins. But I guess going right back into it into the Utah game, we're gonna try and start these little short form episodes here as we get into the postseason as we preview. But before we get into this, in terms of the Utah game, what did we see in that one that really obviously was a 6-1 victory, but what were the keys to how the Blues just were able to dominate the Utah Hockey Club, Nick?
The first period was absolute domination. I think the first few minutes were a good feel out for both teams. But once the Blues went up 2-0, it felt like throughout that period, there was no looking back. I think they were up 4-0 after that first period. They were dominating. And usually Utah has it out for the Blues, as we talked about in the last podcast. But that was not the case on Tuesday night. We were playing for everything. Utah, could play as loose and fun as they wanted. They did not have anything riding on that game whatsoever. The Blues had nothing but things that were riding on that game. And they knew that Calgary was playing simultaneously along with Minnesota. So a lot of nerves probably for the boys, but God, did they come through. And everyone got in on the action. It seemed you had Buchnevich, you had Kyrou, Snuggie getting in on the goal too. It was just fantastic to see. And I think it was a little bit sweaty, a lot of dumb penalties in that second. But gosh, overall, winning 6-1 and a must win was fantastic.
Well, and obviously that first power play goal from Utah was their only one. But I will say, I mean, the penalty kill stayed strong after that. I think it was it 4 or 5? I think it was maybe 4 penalties in the game, but 3 in the second. I think that's what it was. But despite that, you were able to battle back, and I think our boy JT in the comment section says it best for sure that Bennington did stay strong in that game for sure, and specifically when it comes to those big power play moments where your goalie is going to have to come up big because this Blues penalty kill, as we've seen from experience, has not been too good over the course of the season. But I'll have a stat for you that shows otherwise in the last 25 games, but still it's not the best part of our game, and you were able to battle back and able to score points 5-on-5 and obviously on the power play of our own. So it was a really encouraging game because I know we said it after the Seattle game and on our podcast after that. It's like, this is a must-win game, the Utah game, not just because of the fact that you clinch and you're in, but it's also the momentum that you get going into the playoffs after that. Because even if Calgary lost, which they didn't lose any of the games, which is really freaky to think about, that they would have gotten into the playoffs otherwise. But if they would have lost it, you still wouldn't have wanted 4 games lost or a OT victory, whatever, against Utah, who's not a very good team. They're fine, but it wouldn't have been good to be going into the playoffs with. And then you're able to come up clutch in a monstrous victory over that team.
Yeah, thank God for the point in Seattle, by the way.
Yeah.
If the Blues did not get a point in Seattle, they would not be in the playoffs. And Minnesota probably thinking they're lucky stars as well, scoring with 20 seconds left in the third period. And if they did not score that goal, they would also not be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So honestly, like an insane stretch of a couple of days for the wild card race, because Calgary ended up winning on Thursday night too in convincing fashion. So really sweaty finish, but it all worked out in the end. But man, holy cow!
It's wild to think about, and winning in this tie-breaking fashion makes you think about like all of these crazy games that the Blues have been involved with that you were able to salvage a point against, and like for example, the first thing that comes in my mind, and when I'm thinking about the one of the starts to this big successful Blues team in the winning streak was, and we didn't win the game, but remember about a month ago against LA, the 1-1 game coming off the back-to-back, where severely depleted Blues team, Parayko, I think it goes down in that one. Yeah. So you're depleted on the defense, and you're like, well, you got to figure out a way to win this game. This is huge, and LA's hard to win on the road. And they just Hofer stands in his head, and it's a tight game the whole time. Blues tied up. I think Nick Leddy maybe ties it at 1.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and comes up clutch for the team, and you tie it, give it to overtime, end up losing it in overtime on like the first shot of the game. But it's just amazing though that little moment where you're pretty much dominated the whole game, and you need a goalie to stand on their head the whole time. They're able to salvage a point out of that. Like, those are the type of games this season, and there's plenty else of those, but that was just most recent in my memory that popped up. But those are the games that defined the season and were so crucial to now the latter stages, which ended up coming up big on Tuesday.
I agree. I would like to show, we've gotten 2 comments here, one on Instagram and one on X about the stash. Can we get some backstory? What's the context of the stash? It seems like it came out of nowhere.
I was gonna address it later, because when we got into the playoff preview, but I guess I'll address it now. The answer, Ben, is that you can now consider this to be a playoff stash. And I mean, what a way to get into the playoffs with. Now the question is how far are they going to go, and how far do I need to keep it? Because this thing's not going anywhere. Let me tell you that.
Can we curl it at all? Is it long enough?
It's probably getting to that point. I really haven't tested it.
Handlebar.
Yeah. I'm not looking to really go that far with it. I just want to show that I'm in on the facial hair train as the Blues grow their playoff beards. So I'm here, got the Blues jersey on, Blues hat on. Really hard to deny my fashion choices right now. I know you kind of bring the same hat and sweatshirt into the same episode every day. So
I'm sure I switch it up.
Well, you switch into one other sweatshirt, and I just like to switch it up. And I love to keep the audience on their toes, and we see that it's a huge, I think, pretty much liked. I don't know.
Fans love it. Yeah,
fans love it.
It seems like if you can recall back to the SpongeBob movie when they think they have their mustaches, but it's just seaweed. But the guy who's the hitman trying to get SpongeBob and Patrick, Dennis, he just like grunts, and the mustache just puffs out. It seems like you just did that like last night, and all of a sudden it's here.
Totally forgot about that, dude. That's a really funny episode. Yeah, I guess I could see where you're coming from there. It is kind of an overnight thing, but I had the beard I needed to shave it, and here we are. But thank you, Ben, for that very nice comment. But hopefully I'm glad I'm more trustworthy, I guess. Not that I was trustworthy before. But I guess so moving back on topic here. So obviously we had the must-win clutch game in St. Louis and in front of your home crowd. And again, that's also, Nick, your 12th straight game you win at home as well for the Blues. So again, talking about that hot streak at home, that's a great way to also go into the playoffs with having a very successful home streak, and you're able to play in front of your home crowd and be in it every single night. That's a great way to go into the playoffs, I think. And happy about that. So, but in terms of end of the regular season stats, we're gonna probably, whenever the Blues season ends, which could be, it could be in the next week and a half, it could be in the next month, who knows? But whenever that ends, we're gonna have a separate episode about, just like player recaps and how we thought about the season. But some interesting ones that I thought were interesting. So Blues cap off their last 25 games, 4 Nations about, winning 19, 4, and 3, winning their 40 of their 50 points, 50 possible points, which is crazy. So I'm sorry, 41 of their 50 points. So they want, I mean, literally that's exactly what they had to do, and they did it. And it's just pretty impressive, Nick. I mean, I feel like compared to this, there's a lot of comparisons with the 2019 team right now. It's like, oh, this looks like the exact same thing. They won 11 games in a row. But this team won 12, and just the new coach is in the middle of the season and all that. But I'll be honest, it's almost more impressive the way they did it this season than they almost did it in 2019. They were a better team in 2019, I think, when it was all said and done. But the way they did it in such a short amount of time this year in this season, it's pretty incredible. I mean, you spent the whole month of March where you needed to win all these games, and you found a way to do it. And you had some teams losing at the same time. But how impressive is that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's crazy.
It's really impressive. And I remember I jotted down in the notes the Blues record against the Jets. But I remember being at the game at home in February. It was right after 4 Nations, and they played the Jets. They played them really hard, and I thought they were going to end up winning the game. I was with a couple friends, I believe. And then the Blues ended up giving a goal up with like 28 seconds left or whatever, and ended up getting a point, but they lost in a shootout. Right. And I remember I'm like, the Blues played a lot better that night. And then they had a back-to-back, and they played Colorado right after, and they dominated the Avalanche in a fashion that I have not seen in a really long time, if not ever, in the McKinnon-Makar era. Yeah. And after that game, I definitely thought to myself, if they can continue even just showing a glimpse of that team that played the Jets and the Avs that weekend, I think they're going to probably at least attempt to make a comeback and maybe come up short, but at least making competitive. Yeah. And they were very close to coming up short, not going to lie. Like, everyone was tied in points, or Calgary and us were tied in points. But the run that they had to go on to get them to 96 points was pretty remarkable. And the last 4 games, or 3 of the 4 games, were awfully disappointing. When they lose to the Jets, they lose to Edmonton in heartbreaking fashion at the end of the game. And then they ended up losing to Seattle in a shootout, but a very valuable point, and then ended up clobbering Utah. So, I mean, everything they had to do, they did. It felt like they did it. They're not going to win 20 straight games. I know they won 12, but they were bound to lose a few, and they lost in a timely manner, and they won in a timely manner at the end when it counted.
Yeah. And it's, this team, I think, is not going to be a team of perfection, because this is a young team, mind you. And your defense is pretty old and very experienced, but your forward core, excluding guys like Braden Shen and maybe even Pavel Buchnevich, and maybe some of your fourth line. But even then, like, it's and Sundqvist, even then, it's a pretty young team when it's all said and done. And your top 6, pretty young, experienced, but young, with Thomas and Kyrou. So, you can't really, to me, expectations wise, to me, it meets them and definitely exceeds them for me, because they're not used to these moments in the regular season where you got to win these must-win games especially against Utah and Seattle and all these potential clinching scenario games. And they did it. And it doesn't really matter how they did it anymore. I think, last week we would have probably said a little different, but when it's all said and done, they did it. And that's because I think at the end of the day, if we had this podcast in October, we probably would have said that they wouldn't have been able to make the playoffs.
I mean, we had a podcast 2 months ago and we said we didn't. They weren't.
That's true, and we did say that. I think both of us did, and that was our first episode. I think we said that.
At that point, they had a 3.9% chance to make the playoffs. Like it wasn't just us going crazy, not believing.
Plus 1,600.
Like one would say that is an absolute anomaly that they were able to have a 99% chance of making the playoffs like a week and a half ago from a 3.9% chance 2 months ago. It's crazy.
It really is. Plus 1,600. And again, I remember right after they were playing pretty well before their win streak, I was like, hey, those Blues playoff odds are just starting to kind of creep up a little bit. I remember it was like plus 520 at some point from that. And I was like, I think you hammer it. And I don't know who took it, but I hope you guys did because you would have made some serious bank after that. But if you would have done it in February? Yeah, in late February, you would have had a plus 1,600 odds.
Yeah.
So that would have made you even more. But anyway, so going back towards what we were saying with stats. So one of the things that I found interesting that Luke Rock posted, Blues reporter. So we talked a lot about on the show about Cam Fowler and his impact with the defense, and especially over the win streak when Parayko was mostly out, and he had to kind of pick up a good bulk of the minutes along with Falk. And here he is, his final regular season stats. So with the Ducks, he played 17 games, and he had 0 goals, 4 assists, and was -7 with about 21 minutes time on ice per game. And then fast forward to his time with the Blues, he played 51 games with us, and he registered 9 goals, 27 assists, 36 points, posting a plus 19 plus-minus rating, and about the same time on ice, a little bit more. But what an incredible story he is. And this guy's a 33-year-old defenseman who's very experienced, over 1,000 games, but he was able to come up big for the Blues with that acquisition, Nick. I know we talked about it enough, but I just wanted to see it through with the final regular season stats. Pretty amazing how clutch he has been, especially with that plus 19 compared to -7.
Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter saying that in the first half of the season when he was still on the Ducks, he did a form of quiet quitting, if you will, where he just kind of gave up a bit. Playing on the Ducks, was expecting to be traded the entire first half of the season. And then when it finally happened, I think he flipped a switch a little bit and got a renewed sense of energy and potential. It's not like Cam Fowler's been in the playoffs a bunch and has had a lot of success there when he has been. What did he make playoffs once or twice with the Ducks? I don't even know, but it wasn't a lot. And he now saw a different opportunity, and he looks truly, like one of a top defenseman on a team. He looks really good defensively. He scored some goals, contributes, steps up into the play. And I think we've said this so many times, but worth saying again, probably the most valuable in-season pickup the Blues have had in a really, really, really long time. And he is a huge reason that they've been able to make the run they have.
I can't think of a better in-season acquisition for the Blues in the last 5 years.
I don't know.
I mean, can you think of any? I mean, sorry. I think I don't know if, because Hoffman we signed at the beginning of the year, that 1 year, and he was a good acquisition for a little bit when he started to turn it on. But besides that, I can't really think of anybody, because all the 2019 acquisitions were also before the season. And so I'm really struggling because we don't really have like these crazy deadlines either normally. at least when I've been following him. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Cam Fowler, one of the most crucial in-season acquisitions that the Blues have ever had, and it pays dividends. Now you're in the playoffs because of it. Not totally causation there, but definitely helped our chances. Moving on as well from Cam Fowler, Jordan Kyrou, and with his 2-goal game against Utah, notched his final 36 goals of the season, one shy of his career high, which is 37. But he attained a 37 count with playing 3 less games than he did. He played all 82 games for the Blues this year, which is pretty impressive. So I think a good season from him. I think you could maybe see that as a little bit of regression from not having the same amount of goals with 3 more games played. But to me, I am totally okay with that, just because of his development that he's had on both sides of the game. Because rewind 2 years, he did not have the same Jordan Kyrou when it comes to his defensive play than you do now. What are your thoughts on that?
I just pulled it up. He actually shot less this season than he did in his top scoring season in 2022, 2023. And by a significant margin. I think he had almost 30 less shots and still managed to score just under that mark of 37. So we had 36 this year. Yeah. And his plus minus and in 2022 and 2023, we said it a few podcasts ago, it was minus 38. So it's not like he was playing a very complete game, it seems like, just given that stat alone. This season's been totally different, and I think we've mentioned it a few times, but he's been a much better all-around player. He's playing for everyone. I think the acquisition of Holloway really helped Kyrou being on that line with him throughout the year. And I know lines have switched since Holloway's been injured, but I think Kyrou's bought all the way in this year, and he's really, really looked good. And for him to be able to continue this in the first round is going to be really, really crucial, because they're going to need some goals, and it's probably going to need to come from him at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see that, Nick, because I think one of the biggest things and the biggest critiques that you would see with the Blues in their initial times in the playoffs in the last couple of years, I remember, Tarasenko was probably our best player on the team throughout the I'd say the decade that from 2015, to 22 or 23. And I think the biggest critique of him was that he wasn't always active in the playoffs. And you need your best players firing on all cylinders then. And so the question is this, can your best players, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, we've already seen that Robert Thomas can make an impact. We haven't seen it in a while, but we've seen it. Really haven't seen it from Jordan Kyrou. And the 22 season, we saw a little bit in the playoffs there. But I would love to see more. I would love to see how he could come up big. And then obviously with the defense as well. But we'll slowly transition into that in 1 second. But then in our final thing with Robert Thomas, speaking of the Devil, he ends the season with the 11 game point streak, 4 goals, 19 assists in the span. 5 points shy of his total last year, but he played in 82 games with 86 points. So that's an incredible thing. If he would have played, because he played 70 games?
I think so.
I think it was 70 games. Yeah. So he played 12 less games. And is that right? 70?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. So he played 12 less games, but was 5 points shy of his total last year. So he had a great season and maybe one of his best. And I was talking to our dad today. It's like, he was probably close to 100 points hunting if he would have played 82 games. I mean, that pace doesn't show it, but it would have been just shy of it. But I mean, who knows? Depending on how he has been, especially in the last, 10, 15 games, he's been notching multi-point games like it's nothing every single game. It feels like 2, 3 assist games, sometimes even a goal mixed in there. So yeah,
he's got a lot of pressure on him. I think in this first round, he's been a huge focal point of the offense, whether it's mostly coming from assists. He scored 4 goals in the last 11 games, I believe, and has the 19 assist stat is crazy in 11 games. So he's been on fire. and it's been great to see. He tied his season high from last year with 60 assists on the season in 12 less games. He had 5 less goals, but again, missed 12 games. Like, I definitely see a future here, fingers crossed with health with Rob, but I could see a 30 goal, 70 assist season from Robert Thomas potentially if he's playing in 80 plus games. I really could. I don't think he's that far off right now at all. So, I mean, sky's the limit for him. He's become such a great two-way player as well. His face-off percentage is good. Yeah. He's a good power play killer too. Like, he is a truly like a do-it-all type of workhorse for the Blues. And he's also just extremely talented, which is just few and far between in the NHL.
Yeah, I think 30 goals is a ceiling. I really do. I don't think he can get anything past that, because I think that would be interfering with his assist game. But yeah, I think he's absolutely capable of that. It's just I would love to see 82 games out of him, but he plays so many minutes and crucial minutes that sometimes it's just hard to do that. But as does Kyrou. So he plays a good amount too. But so kind of getting into like the main part of the podcast here, we had some great conversation about this ending of the Blues season, but we wanted to do a little bit of a playoff bracket challenge before we get into a little bit of a Jets Blues preview. And I'm gonna put it up here and save it. But before we are, so here are the matchups here, just to give you a perspective. So Jets and the Blues in the wild card 2 versus the Western Conference champion, and then Stars and the Avalanche, Vegas and the Minnesota Wild, and the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers, all on the Western Conference side. And then looking to the Eastern Conference, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators, Toronto being led by good old Chief. The Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Florida Panthers, so the Battle of Florida in the first round of the playoffs. That should be an interesting one. Washington Capitals, the Eastern Conference champions, with playing the Montreal Canadiens, their first time in the playoffs in a couple seasons. And then Carolina trying to get the monkey off its back and its playoff success, facing the New Jersey Devils. So a lot of different avenues here. But I kind of want to get it on the screen. But Nick, in terms of the Western Conference, while I get it up there, how about what are we thinking for Dallas and the Avs in the first?
Yeah, this one is a really, really fun series. I don't know how anyone wouldn't want to watch this series with Rantanen will have his inevitable return to Colorado a few times in this series. And the Stars, for people that didn't keep up with the ending of the regular season, they won like 6 or 7 games in a row, and then they went on to lose 7 games in a row to finish their season. And in the last game of the season, the Stars were still playing a few players, and Jason Robertson gets hurt. So he was on a heater. He had been playing really, really well in that back half of the year. And all of a sudden, one of their best players go down. It's not like they don't have enough firepower, to be honest, to replace someone like Robertson in the goal department. But I think they're going to struggle given their late season struggles. And Colorado, I think, has looked really good. And I do think that McKinnon and Makar and Nietzsche's, those dudes, they're going to be ready to roll. So I do have them in 6. Ultimately coming out on top in Colorado in game 6. So they'll win 4-2.
Interesting. I funny enough, I had the Avs in 6 too when I was filling out my bracket. Yeah, I think to me the Avs haven't even reached their maximum potential yet with their new team that they've had since the deadline. I think we're waiting for guys like Brock Nelson from the Islanders to start really playing well, and because he was also on Team USA for the 4 Nations, so he's a very good player and very supplemental in their top 6. And who knows? I think maybe Gabriel Landeskog is coming back maybe too for the Avs. Oh, yeah. So, and they've really structured that nice. Guy hasn't played a game in the NHL in 3 seasons, and here he's coming back with this stacked Avs team when it comes to on paper. So I got the Avs in that one, although I think it'll be very competitive with the Stars, even despite with no Jason Robertson. In terms of looking back on Vegas and Minnesota, I think Vegas wins this in 5. I almost wanted to say 4. I couldn't get behind that. That was almost a little bit too. I would be a little too biased. So I'm gonna give Vegas in 5 for that one, and I don't really want to spend too much time on it, but just Eichel, Barbashev, and Stone. Minnesota doesn't have anybody that, or they. I don't even know. Is Kaprizov even going to play in that? Is he ready?
The only thing that's worth mentioning about this one is that Minnesota is healthy.
Yeah, they're healthy.
So they have Kaprizov and Eriksson back.
Yeah, that is helpful.
So I think the Vegas will win in 6.
Okay. So Vegas 5, Vegas 6. LA and Edmonton. For me, this was really tough. And this is the 3rd straight season, or no, 4th. I'll fact check myself on that. But I know that this is maybe the 3rd or 4th consecutive season where the LA is playing Edmonton in the first round of the playoffs. And Edmonton's won every single one of them. This season's different. Give me LA in 7.
This one's hard. I would probably follow you there. I think I could see a world where each of these teams wins every game at home. The Kings are super dominant at home. I could see them closing out in Game 7 at home. So I think I'm going to follow you and go LA in 7.
Okay. All right. I like that. And also Quentin Byfield, Andre Kopitar. Hard to deny those guys. It's also hard to deny McDavid and Draisaitl, but this Oilers team is still pretty unhealthy right now. And I don't know who they're getting back from injury in the first round here, but I think it's going to be a struggle for them. And then on to the Eastern Conference, we'll make it a little quicker. Ottawa, Toronto. I think Toronto wins this one in 6. This is just a totally different Toronto team, I think, when it comes to the way that they play. And they don't have to play the Boston Bruins in the first round. So that for me is the kicker. Give me Toronto in 6 for that one. Nick, do you agree?
I'll go Toronto in 7.
Okay, Toronto in 7. Think it's going to extend it with Brady Tkachuk as his first playoff game with him. Pretty proud of him for that. Battle of Florida. This one was really probably the toughest one for me in terms of the first round matchups. I think I went back and forth this one last night, but I think the Panthers are going to win it in 7.
Yeah, I think Florida in 6. As far as I know, they're full go. Kachuk's back.
Yeah, Matthew.
I know he hasn't played in a long time, so I'm sure there's a little bit of rust there. But I don't think there's going to be many issues getting reacclimated there. So I'm going to go Florida in 6.
Okay, Florida in 6. Montreal and Washington. I think this one's going to be a lot closer than we think it is. Washington is the second best team in the league after the regular season. Ovechkin gets 44 goals as a 39-year-old, which is crazy. And I bet, again, Washington not historically successful playoff team, excluding 2018 when they went to the Stanley Cup, won the Stanley Cup. I think that Washington will win, but I think it'll be in 7.
I got Caps in 6. I don't think they're going to go past the first round or past the second round. So I do think they'll win this series, but I think the Lucks get a run out after this one, but I think they prevail.
Okay. And then finally, Carolina, New Jersey. I think Carolina has a chance to maybe sweep this team. I'm not fond on New Jersey. And I hope that the Hurricanes can figure out a way to get past the second round because they just never seem to know how. But I'm not going to say sweep. I'm going to say Carolina in 5.
I'm going to say the same. If they can't beat New Jersey, then this whole season is just a complete failure for Carolina. Yep. So I'm going to say in 5, if they lose, it would be one of the biggest disappointments, I think, in the entire playoff bracket, honestly, if they were to lose.
100%. And that probably means this change in the coaching department as well with former Blue Rod Brindamore. at the helm there. So we're not going to go any past there in terms of the first round. We'll continue to update as we go along here. But in terms of and we'll post our complete one after this. But in terms of the one we missed with the Blues and the Winnipeg Jets, I want to preface this with we got to acknowledge just how dangerous this Winnipeg team is, Nick. And they're a President's Trophy team for a reason. And it's not just because of their players on the ice with, their top six, especially with Kyle Connor and Cole Perfetti and Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers. But Ehlers is out for game one at least, so we know that. But we have to go to Connor Hellebuck in net. And we talked about it on our post that this guy's not a historically good postseason goalie. And, he's only been past the second round one time in his career. And it was in 2018 when they went to the Western Conference Final and played Vegas and ended up losing. But they really haven't gone past that ever since, yet they've made the playoffs. So what do we see, Nick, as the keys of this team when it comes just to the Jets? How can they beat the St. Louis Blues in this?
I think it does hinge upon how well Hellebuck plays. I know that's sort of always been the narrative around the Jets in the playoffs is Hellebuck really doesn't bring that Vezina trophy winning mentality and play into the playoffs, which ultimately comes at the Jets' demise in round 1 and 2. So it does definitely depend on how he plays. They do, as you said, Ehlers is not going to play game 1 for sure. He is very similar to Dylan Holloway, where he's week to week. And you have Gabe Vilardi, who is day to day. So it doesn't seem like I haven't heard anything about Vilardi as of now. He'll probably be a game time decision, but will play in the series for sure. Ehlers is not a known factor right now, but for Hellebuck, it's going to be really big for him. It's a fun narrative too with Bennington and Hellebuck going at it, Four Nations Championship goalies, and obviously Bennington coming out on the winning end there. So that matchup is super fun. I think that's what makes this series compelling is the Four Nations involvement there. But the Jets have a lot of firepower. There's no doubt about it. The injuries probably do play out in the Blues' favor a bit. I know Holloway is out, and he's a big reason the Blues were at the point where they were at the end of the season. But Ehlers and Vilardi are also really good players as well. So I do think that favors the Blues, but ton of firepower. Blues will really have to play a tight brand of hockey and get their chances and get a few past Hellebuck. So it'll be game 1 is going to be a really, really interesting test for the Blues here and the Jets, honestly.
Absolutely. And to give a perspective on Hellebuck, 2.00 goals against average, right on the dot. 925 save percentage. Biggest thing though for me, 47 wins. 47 and 8 shutouts on top of that. Perspective there, Bennington had 28 wins, so almost 20 more wins than Bennington, and then he played in 63 games, so that's a lot of games as well. So that's a factor. I mean, you play the like 3/4 of the regular season. I don't think Bennington played as many, but he played so many of these games. Now, how are you going to fare when your body has to go for potentially you have to win 16 games to win a cup final, and obviously playing more on top of that. So how does a goalie's body able to really get through that many games? I'm not sure how he would do that, especially playing that many. I mean, he's a really good goalie, but it'll be tough for him. I'm not going to lie about that at all. But yeah, Hellebuck is the X factor here for the Jets. Got to find ways to control Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, both Blues killers in the regular season. We talked about that extensively, but it's just a matter of how can the Blues put pressure on those third and fourth lines and make guys like Cole Perfetti trying to come up big for this team, and not having Gabe Velarde as another depth guy. That's a huge thing for the Jets not to have either.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. So we will see what happens. Jets are a really good team, and I will say I'm gonna check on their starting lineup here because I want to make sure I have this right. Because in comparison with their normal lineups here for their fourth line and third, so their third and fourth lines are really not lines compared to the Blues that are ones that you really would like to write home about. Brandon Tanev, sneaky guy, fierce guy. He's as this from JT again when it comes about Kadri. He said we should go far without Kadri having to face him since he's on Calgary. Probably right, but Brandon Tanev is pretty close to how Nazem Kadri is as a player, and he is fierce. And I know in the hype video, Brandon Tanev was featured as one of the Shen hits, which was kind of illegal, but still a really good hit. So he has Tanev, Adam Lowry, and Mason Appleton. That's a pretty good third line. And then the fourth line, again, kind of like your depth guys, David Gustafson, Morgan Barron, and Jarrett Anderson Dolan. Don't know much about those guys, in all honesty. We'll be interested to see it. But they're top two in their defense, though, specifically Morrissey, Pionk, and Luke Shen. That Braden Shen, Luke Shen thing, the whole brother thing, it's so fun. Like it's all fun until you really get to the playoffs, and I'm sure they're going to cut all communication off for the next week or so, whatever, how long this series takes. Hopefully it takes a week and a sweep, but probably not realistic. I'm sure it'll take maybe a week and a half. Who knows? Week and a half, 2 weeks. So will be interesting, Nick. Any other thoughts about the Winnipeg team?
I don't think so. I mean, they have some really top-notch players, no doubt. There's a reason they won the President's Trophy. There's a reason that Connor Hellebuck is going to be the Vezina winner. There's a reason he's the runner-up right now in MVP odds. They have a really good team. Kyle Connor had 97 points, a bunch of goals, bunch of assists. Shifley Shifley, and then you have a couple guys that are injured. So it'll be really interesting to see who plays and who doesn't, I think, in this game. And how the Blues come out and defend their top lines is going to be critical. If they're going to be walking in like not to say they were walking in that last regular season game that we played, but they're going to have to be much more competitive on the offensive side. They can't be pushed around and forcing the puck, going east and west rather than north and south. They're going to have to be a little bit more competitive in that department, which I think they will. And they figured that out against Utah, but they need to translate it to this game. It needs to happen today, game one, right off the bat, to show what type of team they're going to be. And if they do, even if they don't win tonight, I think they can be competitive in game two and hopefully split. So it'll be interesting. I'm pumped up. It's going to be a great matchup.
Yep. Gotta take at least one of these as we transition to the Blues here for the keys for the Blues, is that you have to find a way to win a game in Winnipeg. And I don't want to really suck up to Winnipeg here, but they're a good environment to play in terms of a home crowd. That whiteout that they do, pretty cool. Not going to lie. But besides that, Blues have shown that they can handle that environment. They won all 3 games in Winnipeg in the 2019 playoffs. So that wasn't a problem for them. They won it in very different ways, especially in game 5, but still they also lost the 2 games at home in that, mind you. So keep in mind that. But in terms of the Blues, so keys for the Blues, Nick, for me, I think one of the things that I think a lot of the people really forget about is just how impactful the Blues special teams was in the final couple 20 games here, especially when you compare them to the Jets. So, we obviously know their record, but when it comes to their power play, Power play percentage in the last 20 games of the season was 5th in the league, 28%. Penalty kill, biggest thing, which shocked me, 88.1% penalty kill percentage, first in the entire NHL. So, in comparison to the Jets, they were 20.8% on the power play, 18th in the league, 80.5% on the penalty kill, 15th in the league. So, kind of making a case here, Credit Blues views with some of those stats, that they're making a case here that the special teams could maybe be the game changer in this series. What are your thoughts?
I could see it. You used what was the last 20 games for those stats?
20 games, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a whole season in front of that.
There's a whole season. And if you look at the whole season, it's different. Those stats are very different. I like the fact that they're trending in the right direction, and the Jets were on the opposite side of that a bit. But I don't think that stat matters all that much right now. I think things could, continue on that trend, or they could deviate. So I don't want to ride too much in the PK and the power play itself. But if we did get the edge in those two categories, the Blues would have a very, very good shot at winning this series. They do have to be strong on the penalty kill. They cannot be giving up power play goals left and right. It would be great, just like we saw at Utah, where they scored 3 power play goals in that game. That was fantastic. That won't happen. But to be able to score at a decent clip would be a huge plus for them. So special teams will matter. I just don't know if it's going to play out exactly the way it did in the last 20 games.
Interesting. And it's funny. I should have known this. I don't really keep in touch on like the whole league when it comes to stats. Jets are the number 1 team on the power play in the whole league this whole season.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. 28.9% throughout the whole season. That tops the league. Their penalty kill, not as good. I think they ended up in 13th with 79 points. It's better than those in both categories, obviously. So I think it'll definitely matter, Nick. I think it's a huge thing, but also another thing for me is the physical play. Is that that 2019 team that was known for the deep playoff run, the cup, and the 22 team, a little different. I think one of the biggest differences is just how they were able to be physical in those 2 series. Like, we didn't really have a lot of those factors in the 22 run, but in 2019, you had, every line that had a guy who would just throw the body. And now it's not like you have that on every line, but you can. But that 4th line is awfully similar to what we saw in the 2019 team. And it's very different. It's guys that we never had in those times, but they're younger dudes and they can lay bodies, and every single one of them can, and they can create energy for you. And the Jets have a similar line to that, and I bet they'll be matching up against that. But so evaluating physical play, absolutely, in terms of what the Blues need to win this series. Any other keys that you want to think of, Nick?
I just think Bennington's going to have to play really well too. Yeah. We talked about Hellebuck, but Bennington, they're going to get chances. They have too good of an offense. The Jets do, that is, to not get any high danger chances. And even in this game 1 alone, Bennington's going to have to win the goalie matchup. And I think that's pretty much what it comes down to for the Blues. There are other factors, of course, but our goalie is going to have to be better. And the other goalie on the opposite end with Hellebuck is going to win the Vezina, and it's technically the top goalie, but he has struggled notoriously in the playoffs. So that will matter a lot if those struggles continue in the playoffs, and if Bennington can continue playing well in the playoffs, which he has been a very, very good playoff goalie since he has joined the Blues. So that'll be a huge, huge test and an important factor moving forward. But the physicality is definitely going to be important. The WTF line's got to be flying around. It's got to be hitting people left and right. I know the Jets will do the same, but we're going to have to get physical really early, just like you said.
Yep. You mentioned a really good point. It is a goalie matchup. I think at the end of the day, Hellebuck is the better regular season goalie, but how can you be consistent with that come playoff time? and we don't know. And he hasn't been historically really good at that. So I'm 100% on that train with you when it comes to how Bennington can play. And I think for me, Nick, as we enter the final stages with predictions in the series, for me in game one, I think this is just me. I think that they will be dominated. That the Jets will dominate the Blues tonight. And I'm not saying that as a spite against the Blues. I'm just saying I think it'll take a second for them to get their feet under them or their legs under them. And again, I could be totally wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I think Bennington's going to have a really good game tonight. And I think the Jets are going to bring it. They're going to have something to prove tonight that they're not a fraud President's Trophy team. I don't know. How are you feeling?
It's really tough to predict on I could see that happening. However, I think they got the domination from the Jets out of the way a week ago when they went to Winnipeg. They should very much understand how the Jets play now. They just played them. It was at Winnipeg. They understand the environment. Of course, it's playoff hockey, so it'll be notched up a level. But they should, for the most part, understand what they're getting themselves into and what it's going to take. I hope, and I think right now, it will come out a bit more even than it was last game. And it should be, from my perspective, a more back and forth. And the Blues should be able to get chances. The Jets will absolutely get chances. There's no doubt. The crowd's going to be very much into it, as you said. But I hope the Blues can make a statement early and having a good first period and seeing how that sits with the Jets and how they respond. Put the pressure on them early, and hopefully they can carry that to the end of the game and end up pulling this out. We're doing scoring predictions on final score
of tonight. Yeah, I guess we could. Yeah, let's do the next two games because we're gonna our whole schedule here for all of you tuning in right now is that we'll be obviously recording this one for the preview, and then after tomorrow's and the Easter Sunday, I'm traveling back to Boston. That we won't be able to record a little post game, feelings how it was and evaluating that for game one. But we are going to combine game one and game two on Tuesday of this week, just to give a recap and keep you guys updated on what our thoughts are. But yeah, let's do game one and game two. For me, I'd say today that they're going to be dominated, but they will win the game, and somehow it's going to be a Bennington masterpiece. I think tonight. I think they're going to win it 3-2. Today in Winnipeg. What do you think?
I do not think they can win a game 3-2 in regulation. They no. That's why I was going to say 4-2. So I think they're going to win 4-2. If it's 3-2 with 2 minutes left in Winnipeg, they will absolutely give up a goal.
Sorry, I should have been more clear. 3-2 after they score an empty net goal with a minute and a half to go, and they miss it at the buzzer.
Okay.
No, I'm joking, but yeah. I 3-2, but it's really, really close at the end.
I'm going to say 4-2, and I think 4-2 because they'll end up getting a empty net goal with about a minute left. Jets pressure, but not able to finish. I honestly do not think they can win a 1-goal game in game one, especially given how they have played this out historically. If it's 3-2 with 2 minutes left, they're giving up a goal and we're going to overtime. There's like zero doubt in my mind. So that's my prediction for game one. Game two, I don't see a world the Blues win both of these games. So I think the Blues will lose this game just like the one last week, 3-1.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm going to say it that they're going to lose the game, but they're going to play a hell of a lot better in game two. And I think Jordan Bennington's probably going to let up some weak ones, and therefore we're going to lose the game 4-1. Yeah. That's our predictions, game 1 and 2. We don't want to do a whole series prediction because obviously we would both choose the Blues, and so we're not going to do that. We're going to go game by game, see how it goes. But yeah, I think this will conclude it, Nick, unless you have a fun fact for us.
I do.
Okay,
I do
go
have
ahead.
a fun fact. And it's about this series 6 years ago today.
Yeah, please.
On this date, April 19th, 2019, the Blues secured a pivotal 3-2 overtime win against the Winnipeg Jets in Game 5 of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. This gave them a 3-2 lead in the series. They went on to win the series in 6 games. And this playoff run culminated in the Blues capturing their first ever Stanley Cup. I love the comparisons. It's very fun to think about. I think this team's different, so sometimes it doesn't feel right necessarily comparing them. But there is a lot of overlap, and they're playing the Jets in the first round. Of course, the seeding's a little bit different, but fun to think about, but can't get carried away.
Yeah, seeding is different. Blues were third in the Central. Winnipeg was second in that series. Now it's a totally different story. Winnipeg is a President's Trophy winners of the 24-25 season. Should be very interesting, Nick. I'm so excited just to have Blues playoff hockey again. I've missed it. We've all missed it as Blues fans. I know you have, and it's just excited to see them back in whatever fashion that it may turn out to be. Whether Winnipeg dominates the whole series and beats us in 5, which honestly could happen, or it's the Blues somehow winning this as an underdog in the series in 7. Who knows? But all we know is that we're just happy to be here. I don't know 100%. About you.
If they win this game, the series truly becomes one that could go the distance in 6 or 7 games. So this is a really critical game for the Blues, and so will the next game. But this one feels extra just to make sure the tone is set. So all eyes on 5 p.m. tonight.
Yep, absolutely. And you'll be getting to some of them in St. Louis, so you're going to enjoy that too.
Yeah.
Blues hockey, Enterprise Center, man. Playoff hockey especially, hard to deny. Gotta love it. But that wraps it up. Hopefully you guys have a great night wherever you're going to watch the game. It's an early start, 5 p.m. Gotta love that. I'd take that over a 9:30 start in Vegas, which could have happened as well if it would have happened a little bit differently. But yeah, I think this concludes it. Have a great night, guys. Enjoy the game. Let's bring home a winner in Winnipeg tonight. See you guys.
See you guys.